planning on moving to Singapore, or you're just browsing the internet and are curious about how much it costs to live in basically one of the most consistently top-ranked expensive places in the world, then buckle up because this video is for you. If you're new here, my name is Sherry and I'm originally from Canada, but I moved to Singapore almost 6 years ago now. Time flies, and I've moved within Singapore a couple of times now, so I'm gonna be covering everything you need to know about living in Singapore. I actually did an apartment hunting video a couple years ago and you guys loved it, so today I'm gonna basically share all the essentials you need to know. So I've covered some of this in the past, but let me just recap it, summarize it, and actually add a few new learnings and perspective that I've gained throughout the last couple years. There are a bunch of different types of housing available in Singapore. First is HDB, which stands for the Housing Development Board of Singapore. These are essentially government-backed housing that the majority of the local Singaporean population lives in. And in the past, I actually mentioned how this is actually a really great avenue to go down if you're looking to be a little more budget-friendly, because the size you're gonna get is probably gonna be bigger for an HDB at the same price point that you would for a private condominium. So I still stand by that. To be honest, in the past, I actually never looked at any HDBs myself. This time around, I actually did look at a bunch of different HDBs because I wanted to have a bit more space for the price point that I was looking at. And there's a few things that I learned that I really want to point out. One is if you're looking for an HDB that's renovated. So there are so many really decked out, jazzy looking HDBs out there. But the reality is that most people will just renovate it and live in it themselves. So there's not that many on the market already. And if there are renovated HDBs, you bet there's a lot of other people looking at it. And second is, if you're a foreigner in Singapore, there's actually a capped quota on how many foreigners and the ratio of foreigners that live in an HDB, because they want to make sure that it's fair and that there are still options for the local population to live in. So you need to actually check to make sure that you're eligible to live in that HDB unit, even if you really like it. Second are condos. So these condominiums typically are fully decked out with amenities like swimming pools, tennis courts, function party rooms, barbecue pits, all these things that are shared common spaces. I would say the majority of expats and foreigners that are moving to Singapore tend to look at condos first. There's a lot of them, especially in like the expat hotspot areas of Singapore. And it's actually what I was previously living in for the last 5 or so years in Singapore. I love it, but this time around, to be honest, I actually had to ask myself, Sherry, how many times have you even used the gym or the pool at your condo? I think I went to the swimming pool at my building less than 10 times in the last 2 years. So when I was evaluating what I was actually looking for, I realized condos actually might not be the route that's good for me this time around. Next, you've got heritage homes, and these tend to be, as the name implies, slightly older homes, but they're so beautiful, they've got so much character, and they're really charming. You've got shop houses like the ones on Blair Road, and these are usually townhouses, and they're usually really deep, multi-story, super beautiful, and a lot of them are actually renovated and look amazing. If I could afford to live in them, I would love to, but they're so nice. You've got shop houses, and you've also got walk-up apartments like the ones in Lukrembo, which is an area with tons of cafes. These ones, they don't have elevators because they're older, but they're really nice, and usually the size is a little bigger because they're older homes. An avenue for you, if you really love a shop house but you don't want to rent out the whole place, is co-living. So there are actually quite a few co-living companies available in Singapore. Some of them are like Hamlet, Cove, you've got Figment. I've got friends that live in these different companies' co-living spaces, and they love it because the location tends to be really central, and depending on how many people you want to share the apartment with, there's different sized co-living spaces. And companies like Figment actually have a lot of really cool homes, and they actually have a bunch of shop houses that they rent out, so you may even be able to rent out a whole level for yourself without having to commit to a whole building. So that's a really great option. Next up on the list, you've got serviced apartments, which are usually basically like a hotel room, but slightly bigger. Some of them have kitchenettes, and they usually are serviced, as the name implies. So you get people coming in to help you clean your room. To be honest, I don't know anyone that lives in a service apartment long-term, because it's basically like a hotel and you have someone coming in to clean your place. It's really convenient, but it's really atrociously bloody expensive. So kind of get what you're paying for. Usually service apartments are the route people go down if they just moved to Singapore and they're basically spending a couple months figuring out which neighborhoods they like, so they're kind of looking for a temporary apartment. Thing you got to know about in Singapore is that it's illegal to rent a place for less than 3 months, but you're allowed to do that for hotels and service apartments, which is why a lot of people opt for that. Final on the list are landed houses, and these obviously are bigger in size. They're great for family, and if you want a backyard, you've got a doggo, you want to let them run around, then landed houses floors are a great avenue. Obviously, I don't really need a house for myself, so not really the route we're gonna go down. My requirements this time around are a little different to the past. First things first is I still don't want to do co-living because I want some privacy of my own. Second is I actually didn't really prioritize looking at condos this time around. I was looking intentionally for renovated HDBs or renovated walk-up apartments, heritage homes. Essentially, I don't mind a slightly older building if that means I get a little bit more space. So space is really the thing that I'm prioritizing this time around. The one thing that I really want is a dining table. I don't care if it's for 4 people, 6 people, 8 people, I don't care what size it is. Basically, I don't want to eat on the floor on my coffee table anymore, and I really want to just have a dining table that isn't my desk where I work. So that is all these specific requirement is I want a dining space. And then now that I work for myself and I have my own business, I actually don't need to go into the office every day of the week. But if I wanted to stay at home and work, I can. So the commute time to work for me is a little more flexible. I'd love to still be able to get into core city center really quickly, but it's not the top priority for me anymore. And on that note, because I do go work from home, it would be ideal if I could have a study room, so a second bedroom, just also so that I can host my friends when they come to Singapore. But it's also not a strong must because I'm conscious of my budget, which is the last thing on the list. Just to give you guys a point of reference on how crazy the housing market has gotten. My last apartment, which you guys have seen a tour of, that was a 500 something square feet studio apartment, and that used to go for 2.6, which is what I was paying. They decided to up it to 4,200, and I was like, what? 4.2k for a studio apartment? Even despite that, they didn't bring the price down. So I was like, yeah, no, absolutely not. So the reality of the housing market in Singapore is that it is obviously very expensive, but I think for that price point, to be honest, I still can find a bigger space that's a little more comfortable. Let's talk about the searching process. So in the past, I mentioned you can go on websites like Property Guru and 99.co to look for places. This is probably basically the 2 standardized places you always go look for homes. Personally, to this date, I still like Property Guru's UX UI more. It's just so intuitive, it's so easy. There's oftentimes repeat listings, so it's not a big deal if you just prefer one over the other. To be honest, the housing market was so crazy that I downloaded the app, and basically any free moment that I had, I was just like scrolling through and seeing what new listings there were. Aside from those websites, there's actually a lot of Facebook groups dedicated to housing in Singapore as well, and they're actually fantastic, especially if you're looking to co-live with other people, or you're looking for people who basically for whatever reason need to leave Singapore and they've got the remainder of their lease at a really great price from when they signed their lease that you can take over. Usually you still negotiate, but Facebook groups are a great avenue to go down. And then of course, lastly, you can go through an agent. Personally, for me, I still don't find the kind of use in having an agent because I like owning my own schedule, and with the housing market so competitive, I actually don't feel like it's very practical to have another person to talk to another person who talks to the landlord. I'd rather just go straight into the landlord's agent and just coordinate it myself. But also, I just also don't want to pay the agent's fee when I can very easily do it myself. But it's up to you. I know that if you sign a lease that's 2 years or longer, I believe the landlord is the one that covers the agent's fee, not you as a tenant. So just look into that as well. So let's say you're on Property Guru and you find a place that you love, WhatsApp the agent. The agents pretty much all ask similar questions, which is your name, your lease duration you're looking for, do you have pets, do you smoke, what nationality, what do you do, what work visa you're on, all these things. So I usually just have a standardized copy and paste message that I send to all of them. And to be honest, I don't really know why they ask you what your budget is. If I'm messaging you about this apartment that is of this price point, obviously it's within my budget, so I don't get why people still ask for your budget. Anyway, let's talk neighborhoods in Singapore. I love this topic because there are so many great areas that you can live in Singapore, and it's so great. So first, you got the core CBD downtown area. CBD stands for Central Business District. This covers, I would say, Taluk Ayer, Tanjung Pagar, Marina Bay area, just anywhere where there's still a lot of high rises. And I'm just gonna lump in Spottiswoode, which is like almost bordering Outram Park area. All of these places are essentially walking distance or maybe at most 1 subway stop away from most people's office places if they work in the city. This area is great. There's obviously a lot of bars. Friday, Saturday night, you can walk to places like Yongsak, which is a street with lots of bars and restaurants. However, the thing to know is even though you're in close proximity to a lot of great restaurants in the evening, during the day on the weekends, it's kind of like a ghost town. Not many people will go wander around downtown because what is there to do near all the office buildings? But it is a really great area if you're someone that works in finance, you need to go work at the office very often and be able to walk to the office. Then you've got River Valley, which is a very nice residential area. It's essentially the area I would say that's along the Singapore River, so it includes Robertson Quay as well. I love this area, and my previous apartment was kind of in the general vicinity of this area as well. I love it because if you're someone that loves running and walking, you can do that along the river. You've got tons of great cafes and restaurants and bars there, and a lot of foreigners live in Robertson Quay, River Valley area. This area has a lot of young families as well, so it's not uncommon to see tons of people just pushing strollers and walking their dogs along the river. So it's a very neighborhoody vibe, and I know tons of friends that live in this area and love it. I would say the caveat with River Valley and Robertson Quay is that you're kind of living in an expat bubble with all these foreigners you're surrounded by. So if you really want to get a taste of local life, it's probably not the best area for that. Right near River Valley, I would say, is the Orchard Somerset area. This is essentially one of the main shopping areas in Singapore. I personally still don't love Orchard and Somerset because I find that it's too hectic. On the weekends, there's 18 million people walking around on the streets, and I kind of want to be a little bit separated from that many people all the time. And I'm not a huge person that loves shopping, so I don't really need to be so close to these malls. However, it is kind of, I would say, almost dead smack in the middle of Singapore if you look at the map. So it's a great area to be in if you want to visit all the different parts of Singapore and be very central in that regard. Then you've got Tiong-Bahru, which is a lovely neighborhood. I mentioned this earlier. There's a lot of walk-up heritage homes in this neighborhood. A lot of them are renovated. They're really beautiful, and it's really nice to just stroll around. Tiong-Bahru has a lot of cafes, and it's got a lot of murals. It's got a lot of character. A lot of people who have dogs love living there, and it's very much a comfortable neighborhood to live in. The good thing with Tiong-Bahru is that it's also got Tiong-Bahru Station, which is on the Green Line, but we recently have the opened Brown Line as well. So you've got Havelock really close by. So it's very central, and there's a lot of bus lines nearby. The caveat with Tiong-Bahru is, to be honest, it is a bit of a gentrified area. So you've got a lot of very Western style cafes. But I mean, to be fair, you still have wet markets there. You still got a pretty healthy, diverse local population, but you can definitely tell the moment you walk in, you're like, wow, there are definitely a lot of foreigners here. So it depends on what you're looking for in a neighborhood, but it is a really great one. Then you've also got another one of my favorite neighborhoods in Singapore, which is Bugis. Bugis is so great, and I kind of feel like it's a little underrated relative to all the other common foreigner hotspot areas. So Bugis is so close to the city. There are so many bus lines, and I love taking the bus in Singapore. Actually, I would say I love taking the bus more than the underground subway system. Bugis has a handful of condos available. There is Dual, there's Concourse, which is really beautiful. There's Citygate. I don't know why I know these buildings all so clearly, but I've viewed a lot of apartments in this area. So I love Bugis. It's great. You've got Haji Lane, which is an outdoor, very casual, mural-filled, barzy area, which I love going to. The caveat with Bugis, I'd say, is it's actually not the most quaint, quiet spot, and you're very much still in like major streets. So if you want to be able to stroll around the park, I don't think there's that many walking distance parks you can go to. So if you really want to have a more quaint, peaceful neighborhood, then you should probably skip this one. Then you can go towards the east, and you've got kind of Katong, Joo Chat, Siglap area. A lot of my both local and foreigner friends live in the east. They tend to be people who are a little more settled. They want some separation from work so they can go to work in the city but go back to the east. The east is lovely. You've got a lot of very nice heritage areas. You've got Joo Chat and all the colorful shop houses and boutiques there, but you're also walking distance to the East Coast Park area, which you've got kind of like a beach. I don't know if you really want to call it beach because it's not like, don't think like white sand beach, but there is a beach. You can go cycling, and there's like skate parks there. It's honestly super lovely. The majority of people I know that live in the East kind of stay in the East, and they think the East is like the most amazing, best place ever. Another good thing about the East is that one of my favorite laksa places, 328 Laksa, is there, but they also have other locations. Last neighborhood is Sentosa, and if there's one word to summarize this neighborhood, it is bougie, because it is essentially the island south of Singapore where there's a lot of beautiful beaches and there's a lot of boats and yachts parked in Sentosa Cove area. Sentosa essentially is comprised of a lot of landed houses that are really bougie, luxury condominiums and hotels, and it's lovely. It's really great. Majority of the people that I know that live there tend to be families, people who have kids and dogs essentially. If you're just moving to Singapore for the first time, I would highly recommend you to just check out the different neighborhoods and see what vibes best with your lifestyle, because aside from all these neighborhoods that I did mention, there's actually quite a few more that are a little bit more north of Singapore. Even areas like Bukit Timah, which are very, very common, very family oriented. A lot of the people that I know that live in Bukit Timah tend to live there because it's closer to their kids' schools. So my tip is just check out the different neighborhoods and see which one vibes best with your lifestyle. All right, we got to the most fun part of the video, which is the actual viewing. So I'm gonna show you 6 units I viewed that are all within that sort of 3.5 to 4K price point, and walk you through the things that I liked and didn't like about it. First on the list is an HDB unit. This was $3,800 and it's a one-bedder. It's got an open lofty style concept with exposed concrete floors, which I loved, and it's got a lovely sized living room and dining table area. The bedroom is small, but it serves the purpose, and then it's connected straight to this closet area. I didn't really like how the sink was in the closet area, which is a bit strange, but the kind of bedroom bathroom area is quite compact. And then once you exit the bathroom, you've got a storage area, which is huge on the left, which I love actually. And then you go back into the kitchen area, and I love the fact that there's a big kitchen island. The sad thing with this unit though is I went to go view it at maybe 4 p.m. in the afternoon, and I waited a couple hours just thinking about whether or not I like it. Was it worth it? Because the bedroom's kind of small. 3.8 is still pretty pricey. So I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna put an offer in. So I messaged the agent, and then he told me in the last couple hours since I viewed this place, someone had put in an offer, signed an LOI, and put down the deposit for the unit, and the landlord accepted already. And I was just devastated because I actually really like this unit and I was already thinking about how I'd furnish it. So I was really sad when I realized I lost this apartment, and that's when I realized, holy crap, I really gotta step up my game, especially when it comes to renovated HDBs, because the space is great. There's no way you're getting this kind of size for 3.8 for a 1-bedroom in a condo. Then I viewed an apartment in a building called EIS Residences, which is slightly more towards the east. This is one of those apartment buildings that are lower rises, there's not that many units, and it's quite small. And the thing with these buildings is that they say they have a swimming pool, but this is what their swimming pool looks like. It's like a tiny, dark, at the back of the building, afterthought of a swimming pool. And I was like, and a lot of the times with these smaller buildings, their amenities are not going to win you over. And at that point, I honestly rather just pay that price point for a renovated HDB if I can find one. But the thing with this apartment that I did like is that it's actually a kind of loft penthousey style. So when you first walk in, you've got the kitchen, which is small. Honestly, if I could choose, I would love to have 4 stovetops because I like cooking. But this is the kind of bedroom, living room, all in one area. So I realized their 1-bedroom is not actually a 1-bedroom. It's kind of still a studio. And then it's connected to the bathroom, which is actually quite decently sized and massive. I just wish that there was an actual 1-bedroom, okay? This is definitely a studio. This apartment also has a rooftop area, which is beautiful. I can imagine putting fairy lights there, having a dining table. But the thing is, there are no fans on the rooftop, and it's gonna get really, really freaking hot. And to be honest, the practicality of me actually bringing my dinner up to the rooftop to eat, even when I'm by myself and without friends, it's just rare. So I'm gonna end up having to eat at my desk downstairs 5 inches away from my bed. So this was a no-go for me, especially because it was $4,000 for this unit. I was like, that's just not worth it. So while I was in the East, I viewed another unit that is a 1-bedroom for $3.999 to $4K. And this is a 1-bedroom, but to be honest, I feel like it's kind of a lie. It's actually just a studio. So when you walk in, you'll see that it is a really nicely built condo, pretty standard, and it kind of honestly reminds me of my last apartment in terms of the layout. You've got a quote-unquote study, which is basically what looks like a closet for your brooms and a little dark area with no windows, and they call it a study because you can put a desk there and work in there, which obviously I'm not gonna do. But then you walk out, the living room and bedroom are basically connected, but you walk out on the balcony and you've got this amazing view of East Coast, and it's just lovely. The amenities in Seaside Residences is beautiful. It's such a new building. Pool is massive, area is great, but honestly, I don't want to pay $4,000 for another studio apartment. I just feel kind of ripped off doing that, and at that point I might as well just stay in my last unit, which is also kind of a studio layout. So this one I wasn't too crazy about. Then I viewed another renovated HDB unit. These are honestly kind of like rare unicorns. It's really difficult to find because they're off the market so quickly. It's a 1-bedroom unit in kind of central west area in Clementi, and it's going for $3,500, which is really great from that price point perspective. This unit is beautifully renovated. It's so lovely. You've got a couch area, you've got a small dining table, and you've got kind of tinted windows to the bedroom area. The kitchen is at the back. You've got a lot of nice new appliances, which I love. And you've got a little bit of a storage area with a washer and a dryer at the back, which are separated. The thing is, there's only one window in this unit you can actually open, and it's a tiny one, so there's not a lot of natural light. And the agent basically told me the landlord did this intentionally because she really wanted that kind of blackout, cozy hotel room style. So a lot of the windows were all just covered and made so that you can't actually open them. And you can definitely tell what the priorities were with this landlord because this is a gorgeous, gorgeous wardrobe area. So much storage, and it's honestly a girl's dream vanity area. But the reality is that if I could choose, wow, I would love to have so much space for my clothes. I'd rather have a little bit more living space. So this was such a beautiful unit, but I had to pass. Then I viewed a 1-bedroom going for $3,800 in the Bugas area, which I love this neighborhood. This is a lovely 1-bedroom loft style. So you've got the main kitchen area and dining living area downstairs. Then when you go upstairs, you've got the bedroom, and you can see that it's got high ceilings and it's got exposed beams. So you can actually really deck it out and make it look really nice and be able to host friends at your place. But to be honest, something about the building just felt a bit off. I just got weird vibes from it. I didn't take a video of this, but the hallway leading to the units, it's this eerie, scary looking hallway that goes what feels like forever, and there's just like a million doors leading to it. So something about it just gave me really weird vibes. So maybe that's just me, but for $3,800, it's a beautiful space. I mean, you can see all of them are kind of around the same price point, and the space you're getting here is massive and a great neighborhood. The last unit I viewed is a studio unit that's going for $3,600. Honestly, the price point was what kind of attracted me to it. I am not a huge fan of going for studios right now, but I was like, you know what? It's a squarish layout, so it looks awesome. It's a great neighborhood. It's in kind of River Valley, bridging on Somerset area, walking distance to a lot of great restaurants. This building is a little bit older. The kitchen and everything is a little bit dated, but it's actually got really great space. It's got gas stovetop, and the bathroom has a lot of counter space. But I think just the fact that it's such an open studio, I think with my last apartment, even though it's a studio, I still had like some separation of the entrance area. You can't see everything in one go, basically is what I'm trying to say. With this unit, because you can see everything, I just don't know how I'm gonna put my dining table with my bed and then have that bed right by the balcony, which is lovely and huge. But I think it was just, I just really wanted to have a little bit more separation between work, play, eating. So this one was a no-go for me. So I viewed these 6 apartments and more, and I viewed so many different neighborhoods, and you'll see the recurring trend is it's either a condo that is older, and as a result, there basically are no amenities, or it's a renovated HDB unit, which still don't have amenities, but I go into it knowing that there aren't any, and the space is a little bigger. So I really, really wanted to try to get an older building, but a little bit more space this time around. I managed to end up finding the apartment that I moved to. It's not this one, I'm in London right now. And I can't wait to share with you guys the updated apartment tour. But to be honest, it was a really stressful process. Essentially, you want to always apartment hunt in the 1.5 to 2 months before your move-in date kind of time frame. Any earlier than that, you can start browsing just to see what's on the market. But the reality is that they will just want someone to move in earlier. So if you're not ready, there's no point. If you do any later, essentially it gets extremely stressful and the clock is ticking and you might not have a place to live. So I lost a couple apartments because I wasn't fast enough. So in the end, to get my new apartment, I actually had to put an offer on the spot when I went to go visit the unit. And I had to provide all the documents and sign everything right away. So by that point, I was honestly just so done with apartment hunting, but I managed to find a home that I love, and I can't wait to share with you guys what it looks like. Despite how stressful apartment hunting can be, I'm sure you guys will be able to find the perfect home for you in Singapore. If you got any questions about moving to Singapore, leave a comment down below. In the meantime, I'll catch you guys on Instagram and TikTok where I post very frequently, and I'll see you guys in my next video.